Hi, welcome to another episode of Wildflower Conversations. Today, I'm really excited to have Emma Marsh on the line. Emma and I heard Emma speak at an event through Women's Business. We're in the same community, but we hadn't met yet. And I heard Emma speak for the first time and was just completely blown away by her authenticity and her realism in what it's like to grow a business online and just be real and just be a mum, and how to do that without feeling the pressure of being someone that you're not. So thank you for joining us today, Emma.
Thank you so very much for having me on. It's very exciting.
And so I would really love to start with what has driven you to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day and have a really perfect routine that sets your day up to be complete bliss and perfection.
Nothing at all has driven me to do that. That is the opposite, the complete opposite to what happens every single day. The complete opposite. Apart from on a Monday, I do try and start my week off very well, but that didn't happen this Monday. So yeah, it's probably happened 3 Mondays in the 35 years of my life.
And I definitely think that's why you immediately resonated with me.
Yeah.
And then I saw you speak not too long after that on a bigger stage set. And I have never, ever heard in my life the applause that you received that day. And we were in a room of, was it 800 people?
Yeah, I think so. 800 people.
In a room of 800 people, and then a couple of hundred extra that were tuning and live streaming across the world. And we're in the same industry, we're in the same business together, we're in the same community. And I've been in that community for a little while and in that space, and find that I've really put myself on a massive detour, getting really caught up in shit that doesn't matter and shit that's not actually going to help. And it wasn't really aligning with who I am anyway. And so I found myself massively in the comparison game, and have done a really big loop back. And I've sort of just heard you speak just as I was coming to terms with the fact that I was trying to grow a successful business being completely inauthentic.
Yeah.
So I guess what I would love to sort of find out from you is, did you have a moment where that was sort of where you came to that realization, or was it sort of more of a gradual realization that, that being inauthentic in an online business is just not going to work?
Yeah, so I definitely, I think our journeys, like the two journeys that we've had, are very similar to each other. When I came into our online business that we had, or we have now, I was confused probably for the first 6 months, and the reason why I was confused is because I was like, I don't know who I'm meant to be or who I'm meant to show up as in this space. The people that I was looking at, so the people that introduced me to the business, even though we all have the same values, which is our family and our health and our children, I thought if you had the same values as someone, then you had to be that person. So that was something that took me a long time to realize, that even if you have like aligned with the same values of them, you can still be two completely different people. But I thought that I had to be like this picture perfect thing, and I had to be like the healthiest person in the world, and live this amazing lifestyle and have this amazing social media page and all the rest of it. But I did, like, to answer your question, I had a massive defining moment. I think how I got there, I can tell you the story about how I got there. I realized the other day that I had planted what I now call a comparison tree. So I planted a seed of, and like I had to kind of think to myself, like, when did this begin in my life? Like, I turned 35 next month, and I'm like, when did it begin? When did I start to do that? And I didn't do it at all as a child and a teenager, and I should have, because all my friends would always say to me, like, you're nothing like your sisters. Both my sisters are so intelligent. They're good looking. They're thin. They're good at sports. They speak different languages. They are both lawyers. They're really excelling in their field. And I'm like the complete like opposite to them. And everyone would be like, how do you wake up like that? And I'm like, I love it. They love it. I love it. Like, I love that I'm different to them, because all together we fit perfectly in a family. But it was, for me, the comparison started when social media started, because it was in your face every single day, from the moment that you woke up in the morning to the moment you went to bed. There was all of these different people living out these lives that you had no idea even existed. So for me, I planted my seed. I reckon I honestly planted it the day that, like, I fell pregnant and I started following people on Instagram that were not my friends anymore. So not my friends anymore, but not my friends at all is, sorry, what I mean. So I was planning on having like this beautiful birth, like to my son Lachlan, and I was following all these people that were like, you know, these amazing women that were water birthing and doing yoga poses, and babies were falling out of them, and I was like, this is it. I'm going to have a baby. It's not going to hurt at all. It's going to be perfect. I won't need any drugs at all. And then Lachlan came along, and I was like, there, and I still to this day believe there's not enough drugs to birth a child, and I needed more than what they gave me. And I'm pretty sure I was unconscious, but it was not enough. I could need definitely more for that birth. But anyway, when I came home from having him, that was when I planted my seed, and then I started to grow branches off it. And then around, like, about a year later, after having Lachlan, I was pregnant again. And I started the online business. And so in that year, I'd grown all these different trees about how I was meant to be as a mum and breastfeeding, and, you know, all the pressure that a mum feels in the life of the world. So I'd started to grow this bush. But then when I started the business, it's like I got out a hose and I just watered the tree like next level, and then it just grew out of control. And it started with, like, I think because in our industry that we work in as well, there's so many, like, I guess, Instagram famous people these days around. And for some reason, you think in your head that if somebody has like 50,000 followers on Instagram, then they must be like, you know, this amazing person, so much better than what you are and the value that you could possibly give. Like, it's so ridiculous how we think. Anyway, I was going for a certain level of promotion in our business, and so was somebody else, and I didn't know who she was, and I Googled, I looked at her on Instagram, because, you know, what do we do? Like, the number one thing that we always do is stalk people. We stalk people on Instagram. When someone's like, do you know so-and-so? You're like, no, who's so-and-so? And you're straight to Instagram, like, who's that person? And so you're on the stalk. And so I was like stalking these people on Instagram, and then I was like, that's why I'm not succeeding, because I don't look like that, and I don't have all the talents that they have, and I'm not pretty enough, and I'm not this enough, and I've got a salmon bench top and a Gumtree tile feature in my like 1970s kitchen. My kitchen's not pretty enough, and all of these stories and crap that you're telling yourself. And so my defining moment of it all was when I tried to be that. I was like, I'm going to download all the apps. I'm going to, like, you know, find out what Photoshop is, because that looks like it's easy enough to make me look a shit ton skinnier than what I am. I was like filtering everything. Like, I remember one day one of my friends called me to say that Lachlan's hair was like, they're like, oh, Lachlan's hair's gotten really light. And I'm like, has it? And then I'm like, no, it hasn't. But the filter that I'm using made it look like my son had white hair. I was like, oh, what am I doing? Anyway, it was ridiculous. And at the time I had a 1-year-old and I had a 2-year-old, and I should have just been, you know, living life with them. But instead I was trying to Photoshop snot out of their nose and try and be something that I'm totally not. So I definitely reached a breaking point, and I remember it really, like, this really defining moment of having this breaking point of, like, looking at my daughter who was sitting at my feet while I had my phone on my hand, and I was like, I'm just deflated. Like, I hate myself. I absolutely hate myself. And I thought, 4 years ago, I never hated myself. I loved myself. Like, I didn't hate myself at all. I really enjoyed my own company. I enjoyed what I looked like. I enjoyed what I sounded like. And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, how did I get to this point? And then that's when I realized that it was the phone. Like, it was the app. It was the social media, that I would have a great day with my children, but then lying in bed at night, I'd go onto the scroll hole, or whatever you call it, when you're scrolling nonstop. And then I would get to this, like, I'd feel depressed because I didn't teach my son Spanish that day and somebody else did. And so someone else taught their kids Spanish that day. And I'm like, shit,
Yeah.
I can't even teach him English, let alone Spanish as well. Like, my goodness. And so I would go down that road, and I was doing that every single day. And it was the same thing. Like, the first thing you do in the morning when you wake up is pull out your phone, and then you have these all of your people that you're always stalking, that you're always looking at. And you know, if those 5 people aren't there to inspire you and make you want to be better and do better and see better, if they're there and you're just looking at them going, what are they up to today? What have they done with their children today? Oh, I need to watch that video to find out what they're wearing at the moment, or what they're saying or doing, because they're succeeding in this business. So I need to follow them. I need to stalk them. Like, if you're doing that, it breaks all your joy. It completely breaks all your joy. So my big defining moment was that, when I realized, when I looked at my daughter and I thought, I don't want her to do this. I don't want her to look at someone. I don't want her to look up at me, because I am her example in life. I don't want her to look up at me and just think, my goodness, my mum spent the first 21 years of my life just comparing herself to other people, and then nothing we ever did was good enough for her because somebody else is always doing something better. So that was my big kind of my big defining moment, I guess you could call it.
And so I've just had a few pops myself going through that, going back to, I was really happy with who I was as a child, as a teenager. And I would have to completely agree that mine sort of came around when my kids got asthma and they had a lot of undiagnosed food allergies. So I actually, sort of before I'd started my online business, started following people in the health and wellness industry. And I had never even really felt mum guilt before. And then just found myself in total comparison, in just complete comparison mode. And then bring on this business and coming into people who I had actually looked up to in the health and wellness and was really excited to work with them, but couldn't cut myself away from it. And it wasn't really until last year when my husband got into an accident that I was telling you about earlier, and really had a big wake up call to, what am I doing? What have I been wasting my time thinking about? Because I was noticing that the stress we were going through was already sort of there. I was already sort of feeling that internal stress. And I was thinking, this should feel very different, this stress that we're going through with the accident. And then I felt that I've sort of been putting myself through torment emotionally, comparing myself to people that don't even know I exist, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then this over Christmas time went off social media, and I remember someone so in our community just said, I'm going off social media for 6 weeks, maybe longer, maybe less, and I'm really, really excited. And she said, oh, aren't you worried about your algorithm? And I was like, no, I'm worried about my mental health.
Yeah.
And sort of really took that as a sign of, okay, that's a really great lesson, that I need to really step back and get back to my family, get back to myself. And over those 6 weeks, when I thought, okay, 6 weeks is over, should I put it back on? I actually only put it on my laptop, and I left it off my phone for another little bit after that, because it felt so invasive having it on my phone, and that I also couldn't be trusted to not go back into.
Yeah.
And I find myself now having to literally stop myself when I go through someone's stories, or when I and I'm like, one, why am I doing this? Like, is there something else I could be doing right now that's more productive than watching this person's story? And 2, is this just feeding the monster? Because it really is a monster inside me that loves to compare my worst self to somebody's best.
Yeah.
And that's a really unfair comparison.
Yeah. And it's awesome that you can actually see that the monster actually lies within you and not within social media itself. It's not Instagram's fault or any of those people's fault that do the post or whatever. It all falls back onto us. And that took me a long time to realize. I went through a phase of like just hating. I was like, social media shouldn't exist and it should be dead and no one should be on there. And it's like look at mental, I promise you, I'm not a scientist or a psychologist or anything like that, but I truly believe that the rise of mental health and the rise of social media go hand in hand together. Like it's like
Yeah.
today's mental health is out of control, and so is like the amount of social media platforms that there is and the pressure to perform on them. But it's the toxic. I read something the other day, and I think it was Gary Vee that actually said it. And he was like, it's not social media's fault, it's your toxic relationship you have with it. So you obviously found
Yeah.
a point where you're like, I've got to get out. And so you did for 6 weeks. And then that's awesome. Like, that's amazing. And it's up to us to be able to get back in and get out, like when we need to and when we can. Like, one thing I realized the other day, whenever we talk about how people always say about how the top 5 people that you're hanging around need to be, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around. So I truly believe you're the average of the 5 top people that you're following on social media, because of algorithms and things like that. If you're always looking at the same people, they're always going to be the same people that pop up. So if those people don't make you feel really inspired and really happy, it's the exact same as if you're hanging out with them in real life. But it is definitely, I love that the monster is in with you and you feeding the monster, because that is so true. That is exactly what it is. Like, I was going to give the Christmas Day example of one of my girlfriends that called me on Christmas Day, called me on Boxing Day, and she's so beautiful and amazing. And I was like, how was your Christmas Day? And she's like, you know what? It was really, really, really good. Oh, I saw your photo. Oh, you've got such a big family. You're so lucky. Like, it was just me and like the kid and my husband, like, because we come from this massive family kind of on both sides. And I was like, but you loved it. You loved your moments with your husband and your kid, and you had the bestest day ever. And then you got on social media and you saw a photo of somebody else's Christmas, and then you told yourself a story that my Christmas is not good enough because I didn't have enough people around me. And you've done that. Like, you've created that story in your head. And that's the problem. Like, that's the thing that we need to fix, because until we can fix that, comparison will be around forever. Like, the fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. I think I'm going to get that tattooed.
Wow, I love that.
Tattooed on my arm. Like, the fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. It is just
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah, that's hit me. Because I find that to be completely true. And going through that motion, it's kind of like the best way to sort of describe my feelings towards social media is, you look at a beautiful beach and you go in there, it's so inviting, and you're like, oh, look at that, and the next minute you're caught in a rip and you're like, oh shit, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And that's definitely how it sort of evolved. And I'm not really sure at what point I turned it from, oh, I'll get this recipe idea off this lady, to, oh, I'm really not doing a good enough job. My house is a mess.
Yeah.
This. My car, I think we got pulled over for a breathalyzer, random breath test. And I was telling my mum about it. I said, oh yeah, I got pulled over for a breath test, today, and blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh God, you're lucky that they didn't call community services on your car. She's just having a dig, you know what mums are like.
Yeah.
And I was laughing, but then I was like, yeah, it's true, because my car was just, we've got nippers, we've got a dog that we take to the beach.
You got kids.
The kids are just eating apples and bananas in the car. And it's just, but that, it's like, that's okay and that's fun and that's funny. But then that point when you're watching someone's story and they're buckling their kids in the car, and you look at their immaculate Mercedes, four-wheel drive with, and you're like, I should be doing that. And I don't know at what point that started, but I am glad that I recognize now that it's definitely out of control.
Yeah.
And what's worst is when I have that conversation like you just had with your friend, when someone says to me, oh, you look like you're having such a beautiful year, and last year going through my social media looks like, and I thought maybe I've done a really big disservice, because last year going through my social media looks like we had the most idyllic year because we had a newborn. We had it, but under the surface, I guess, the bottom of the iceberg laying under the water was my husband was hit by a truck. He had 3 months off work. We had the most stress that we've had in our lives ever. And I tried to balance that out by not putting my dirty laundry on
Yeah.
on Facebook. But when people were messaging me, and I sort of thought, oh, well, I can't go. Well, actually, we're not. So I sort of just played into that as well. And that's definitely when I went, no, I'm not being authentic. I'm not being myself. I'm not telling my story as it is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take some time out. Do you have something that you find that you have to do? Do you have something that you say to yourself or do to yourself every day that can bring you back in? Because I know that comparison for me, it's not cold turkey. I can't just stop it, but
Yeah.
I can definitely recognize it and pull myself up on it. Do you have something that you do that stops you and gets you back
Yeah.
on path?
Yeah, I have like 105 different things that I do. But one thing I'll quickly say about, like, to talk about what you just mentioned before about social media is a highlight reel. Like, it really is. Like, people don't go in there and be like, this is my 2-year-old having a tantrum. Great day I'm having. Like, people don't do that. Clearly, all that shit goes on behind closed doors. So it is a highlight reel, and I think that realizing that it is a highlight reel. But the moment that I stopped using social media to just be a highlight reel, and I would write like, I suppose a lot of mine is probably very sarcastic in a way, like, like, holy shit, I can't believe I have to go through another day like this. But it's kind of in a joking sense, upbeat thing, because you don't want to also depress people. I think when I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to do it perfect, and I'm not going to do it this, and I'm not going to do it that. I'm just going to freaking do it. It is part of our business. It is part of our DMO that we do. And so the moment I took all the pressure off, and I was like, I'm not going to try and be anyone. I'm actually physically just going to try and be myself. So if today it's Tuesday morning and it's 11 a.m. and I'm having a glass of wine because, like, life is hard sometimes, well, that's what I'm doing. Like, I probably won't be doing that on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. I'd probably wait till at least 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because day drinking's hard to go into nighttime routine with 2 kids. But I'm just like, no, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm going to take all that pressure off me. It's not going to be picture perfect. It's not going to be this or that or whatever. I'm just going to do it and do it how I see fit. And if we're having bad days and I'm off social media for a few days and I'm not posting, I'm not even worried about that. Like, and I'm not coming back to tell, like, the big story of where I've been gone or anything. I'm just like picking up where I left off. Like, I'm not worried about it. But your question about some things that I do, the thing that changed it all for me was to be grateful for what I had. Like, that's what it was. And finding gratitude, it's really, really easy to be like, oh, I'm so grateful that I've got a house and, a kitchen and running water, because we live in Australia and we're so lucky. Obviously we can all find 1,000 things for our lifestyles that we're grateful for, because we come from a very blessed country. But it was actually just to be really, really, really grateful for, like, the little tiny things, and really realizing that what fills my cup up looks different to somebody else. Like last week I told about on a talk I spoke about the Sunday journey, and I was doing a talk with one of our mentors in our business, and her self-care Sunday is literally wake up at 4 a.m, go do yoga, go to the farmer's market, have a green smoothies, come home and do Pilates, eat some crystals, meditate, journal, do all that type of stuff. And it's beautiful. And that is her beautiful self Sunday. But I thought that had to be my Sunday as well. I was like, well, if that's what they're doing and they're documenting it and it's in Instagram or whatever, I was like, oh, I need to do that. Like, that's what I need to do. And, like, my alarm would go off at 4 a.m. and I'd be like, no way, like, I'm too hungover from Saturday night. That's not happening. Like, I'd alarm off the room and be like, I can't do this. So for me, I realized the other day, I was like, I'm almost 35 years old. My self-care Sunday is getting pasta and cheese and red wine and having, like, lunch with my family, and then getting pillows and doonas and going to the lounge room and watching, like, shitty children's movies all afternoon. Like, that is my self-care Sunday, and that fills my cup up. Like, my cup's exploding from that. And so I realized, you just do what makes you happy, and it doesn't have to be what social media is doing. That it doesn't have to be that. Like, it's ridiculous that we think that as well, because no one also is sitting there on our phone saying you have to do this to fulfill yourself and live a perfect life, and no one is telling you have to. We're just taking that message in from what we're doing, and again, that's our own toxic relationship. But, like, for me, it's really just to be grateful, like, to look at it, whatever the situation. Like, I basically, like, at the moment, I guess you could say I'm doing 3 different jobs, and it's hard because I feel like I'm working non-stop. And the other day I had this moment of, like, this is BS. I'm surrounded by all of these stay-at-home mums, and they have it so easy, and it's so like, you know, easy for them. And then that's the moment where I catch myself and I go, stop it. Like, you're being the green-eyed monster and you're doing the comparison game, Emma. You should be so grateful that you get to do this business around your children, number one. You should be so grateful you get to go to your traditional job where there's a free flowing coffee machine, number two. You should be so grateful that you get to go. We have international students, you know, you get to go and you get to be and like learn from other different cultures, and, you know, go and hang out at their universities and that type of stuff, and show the children that type of, like, just grateful for anything. I actually had like one of my sideline buddies from our community reach out to me yesterday, and she was saying, you know, oh, I feel this, and I automatically heard it in her voice. I was like, you're not grateful for anything. It's all just like, you know, this is hard, this is that, you know, and the line of it's so easy for her, because like we have to erase that line out of our vocabulary, even if it is more easier for other people, which it is easier for some people. We got to get rid of the line, because every time we do that, all we're doing is just saying that our life is so hard. Like, it's so easy.
And I think for the people that, and I think for the people that we perceive have an easier life, there's a couple of things that are going on. They are either they have a lot going on under the surface, the iceberg that we really don't know about, whether it's divorce, marriage, past traumas, and they're sort of now then they've kind of come from somewhere where they've really dug deep and cultivated the life that they want to live.
Yeah.
And I think on that journey of me trying to design my life and trying to cultivate a life for my family that I truly love, that's where I got really lost on my journey, and then started going, well, I want to be able to, and really big goals, really big visionary dreams, and sort of just felt so detached from them, sitting here in my 3-bedroom house, my beautiful 3-bedroom house, with my kids, and sort of going into the work of, say, Brene Brown, doing a lot of her work last year, and having the realization that what I was really craving was an ordinary life.
Yeah.
Those little moments like cuddling up on the couch with your kids.
Yeah.
And I think the stresses of, well, how am I going to, you know, I think we don't learn to switch off.
No.
So sometimes when we're having that self-care Sunday and we're cuddling up with our kids, we're also going, okay, Reggio's due next week. Making sure that we've got that sorted, this and that. And I think then that's when we come into the comparison game, when someone posts a perfect picture and I think, I bet she's not stressed about her Reggio this week.
Yeah.
And I sort of find myself going, what is it that I truly want? And having that time off social media really helped me go into that space where, what are the things that I enjoy doing the most? And I don't really care where I am, as long as I'm with my family, with my husband. We've got a dog. We live at the beach. So what are other things that I enjoy doing, and just do them?
Yeah.
And instead of feeling the pressure to do them in a certain way, or to go, well, that's ordinary, so that's not good enough.
Yeah. And like, we're part of the network marketing world, and in network marketing, people, like, it's not really shown so much, I guess, within our companies, but other companies, people make it out like it's a lifestyle, and if basically you're not carrying around a $5,000 handbag and jumping out of a freaking helicopter and drinking $3,000 bottles of champagne, then what's the point of getting into network marketing? And that for me was why I did not align with it for such a long time, because I was like, that is none of what I want. And I'm like, is that what I meant to want? Like, and you're trying to chase a dream that actually belongs to somebody else. It doesn't even belong to you, and you don't even need to chase it. Like, it's ridiculous. 2 questions that I have learned to ask myself now when I'm having the moments that I have, and the green-eyed monster and all that type of stuff, is how do I want to feel at the end of my life? And what if my children, so my son or my daughter, became the person that I am today, would I be proud about that? So
That's
that's,
beautiful.
yeah, they're my two things now, because I think like all the time, if I get to the end of my life and I can actually look back and just say, you know, whatever, I lived in a cardboard box and never brushed my hair and my house was a complete shit show, but I helped people every single day and I made people feel like that ordinary is okay and that it's totally amazing to be that way and they don't need to be anything but themselves. If I can just literally at the end of my life be like, that's what I did. I just made women feel good about themselves just for being them. Like my husband says it to me all the time. He's like, Emma, you don't make anybody feel amazing. You make people feel like they can be themselves. And that is amazing. And I'm like, that's so it. That's just my life purpose. Like, it's not to buy like a freaking mansion and live in like Beverly Hills. It's to literally just make people feel better because it's a purpose bigger than myself. And then if my children turned out to be the person that I am today with the thoughts that I have in my head today, would I be proud of that? Which I'm not there yet on that, by the way. I'm working on that, but but like it's something I think that you ask yourself. So you think like, you know, if you're living right now in a place of suffering, comparison, you know, all of that, is that how you want? Like, do you want your children to be like that? Like, do you want your kids to grow into that person? Because they're going to, because that's where we are. So that's where, yeah, I kind of look at that and think like, you know, who do I want them to be?
Thank you so much. There is, I could do this all day,
Yeah.
because I do think you have so much value to add, and it is such a breath of fresh air, to speak to someone who is happy to just cut through the bullshit of social media, of trying to create that FOMO lifestyle, so we all
Yeah.
jump on board when
Yeah.
really down on the surface, it's hard work, and it's, you know, it's full of real people doing real
Yeah.
stuff, full of real challenges. And I don't know whether there's like this golden gate that we get to where it's like, ta-da, I no more care. But
Yeah.
as I think, as long as we're putting one foot in front of the other and making that conscious effort to just wake up a little bit better the next day,
Yeah.
or to go, yesterday wasn't a great day, but today's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today's definitely going to be better than what yesterday was.
Yeah.
So
And that's like my third
thank you.
point. Yeah. The only person you need to be is better than the person you were yesterday. And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to getting to chat to you again, you know, sometime down in the future. Thank you so much for jumping on. I
Thank you
hope
so much for having
whoever,
me.
that's okay. I hope whoever's listened to this, who's not my mum, I hope, even if my mum listens, I hope you get great value out of this. But my mum, you know, she's 60 tomorrow, so she's got her living life on her terms down pat.
Awesome.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank you so much, Emma.
No worries, my friend. I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.